My friend Joseph Dietrich, your article on anarchism has gone virtually viral. Do you want to tell us about it?
Sure. It's about anarchy, and it's more of a biographical piece than anything. It really details my personal evolution from being a sort of a conservative to a libertarian to eventually becoming an anarchist. And I think it's rather generic in terms of what we're talking about. We're not getting into any specific types of anarchy. We're not talking about any specific theoretical tangents within anarchy. We're just talking about the absence of the state and how you come to realize that that indeed is the best course of action for all humans. But I don't even remember, I don't really recall what made me write it in this particular style. I think I was just goofing around on Wikipedia or something one day and was reminded of our own old friends Kubler-Ross, who has the 5 stages of grief model. And I thought that, hey, maybe I could apply this to something that is the exact opposite of grief and death, and that's life and freedom.
Cool.
And so I did, and I tried, and it turned out to be light years beyond my expectations. And it actually maps out quite well.
Do you see it as giving up a faith in the state or coming to have faith in liberty? I'm sorry to use those terms. I should say do you think it's all about giving up your sort of trust that the government can solve problems, or is it really about beginning to understand that within the framework of liberty, there's all there needs to be to manage the social order?
Well,
which of the two things dominate?
I think it's more of a personal evolution. So if I had to choose between the two, I would go with the latter. But Jeffrey, when we're free, or when we're born, we're free. Our minds are completely free, and as we progress in our lives, we rightfully so, and this is a good thing. This is an evolutionary trait that is good. We adapt to tradition and precedent and what society is currently doing, and we adapt to those norms to fit in and to deal with life. And most of those adaptations are good. But one particular adaptation, the acceptance of the state, is for many reasons not so good. And so it's not really about rejecting the state. It's about realizing a life and a mindset beyond the state. It's more temporal than you might originally think. It's about reaching a mind state of post-statism as opposed to anti-statism.
Which you would regard as a recapturing of a kind of the normal condition of the human mind from infancy, in a sense that, I mean, you're right. You were born free in the sense that you come to understand your volition. You understand structures of authority that are around you. Your parents. Maybe you begin to understand social norms, how to behave in grocery stores. Your relevant social unit is your neighborhood. Maybe these days you've got a kind of digital world, and then gradually somebody reveals this terrible truth that there's people thousands of miles away from you who are allowed to steal your stuff and tell you what to do and presume to run your life better than your social network can do. And that's a slightly disorienting thing to discover.
Yes, and well, while you are discovering that, you're not necessarily in a position to question it, because I mean, you're learning it in school alongside 2 + 2 = 4, and that's unquestionable. And so, why would the other things that you're learning be questionable? Why would your parents going to the voting booth? Why would you question that? I mean, you have no reason to. You have every reason to accept that, and that's completely understandable. So it's a personal evolution, realizing that in the world of wonderful precedents and traditions that society has set, there's at least one that should be questioned.
Yeah, and I seem to recall, I'm trying to reflect on it myself. I guess everybody has to kind of go back in your mind and figure out when did you first discover the existence of the state, and what were you told at the time. And it has something to do with the state as your benefactor, right? The reason why you have nice things, the reason why you have freedom, it's all owed to this one gigantic faraway institution. That seems to be at least in my recollection. Is that yours?
Um, I guess I don't really have a specific recollection of that, but the other authority figures in your life, uh, when you learn about them all, when you come to recognize them all, you put them all on the same level. You ascribe the same qualities to them. You know, your parents,
Hmm.
for whatever reason, you probably don't think about this when you're 5 years old, but they are in a position of authority, whether you like it or not, and you realize that most of the things they do are for your good, for your benefit.
Hmm.
When they tell you not to cross the road when there's a car coming, you quickly learn that that's because it's a good idea not to cross the road when there's a car coming. And so other people in positions of authority, other authoritative structures, you tend to ascribe the same values to them, I think. And I think that's sort of what happens to most people, including myself. And it's not until you really take time to introspectively think about it that you come to realize that, well, you know, you have your parents who are in a position of authority, or you have your boss who's in a position of authority, and then you have the state that's in a position of authority. But just because they're in a position of authority does not mean they're all equal, and they're not all equally legitimate.
Right, and you know, I wondered if to some extent this realization, you know, is connected with even realizing the existence of the state. If you read something like Chodorov or Oppenheimer or some of these classic texts, Albert J. Nock, they spend a lot of time just establishing that there is such a distinct thing as the state, and it's really true that a lot of theories of the state just assume it's an organic part of social order, just an extension of natural authority that we have to have, and it's an inevitable feature of the world.
Yes, that's very true. And reading those authors that you mentioned, I'm most familiar with Nock out of those. And I mean, you know, he's one who really does elucidate that well. I can't identify right now the particular author or passage or book or person who made me first realize that. In my article, I talk about Rothbard, and I also mention Hoppe's name, but they're by no means the only two people that can do that for you.
I don't know if you heard the sirens outside just now pass by, and I wonder if I was coming to be arrested for this conversation here.
Well, I did not, but now it's making me worried because there's some sirens behind me as well.
There's coordination going on here. Well, let me ask you this: why do you think do you think it's a personal benefit to a person to sort of become an anarchist, to finally give up the idea of the state and to believe that society is capable of its own self-ordering? Why do you think that's? Is it just purely an intellectual benefit, or do you think there's more to it than that?
Well, in my article, I lay out 5 steps of reaching that point, but I think you could easily talk about another 5 or 3 or any n number of steps after you reach that point, what happens to you. And I think anybody who has reached this point or is on the process of reaching this point currently in their own intellectual history realizes that when you come to the understanding of what the state is and come to realize that there is a conception of the world without the state, there's various stages of unbelievable burden and perhaps even depression, and then there are stages of unbelievable liberation. And for everybody, I think that probably happens differently, but I think everybody does go through that at some point. I mean, there are points, when you can get down on yourself about, oh God, well, things are never going to change, and whether or not they are, you still always have that to hang on to. And I think for me, it's personally, on the whole, very liberating. And it's also very you feel like you're almost a member of a slightly exclusive club, that you've reached this point, and that you know this. It gives you a little bit of almost of an elitist inside vibe, although you not in terms of your relationship with other people.
Right. For me, I wonder if it's true for you. It helps me understand the way stuff works better. Like I'm forever intrigued about being in crowds and seeing that these crowds somehow manage themselves well. I love going to shopping districts or sitting at restaurants and watching, the anarchism all around me. To be an anarchist is to see things that you don't see otherwise. Would you agree with that?
No, I 100%. That's very true. Your perspective on things, your ability to see the mechanics of human social interaction completely changes when you look through it via an anarchist or unassuming lens.
It's intriguing to think about how many aspects of life do not involve the police ordering people around. In fact, it always strikes me that society wouldn't work at all if it depended upon the state. I mean, the only reason things do work is because anarchy works.
Yes, the functioning of society happens despite the state, not because of the state.
Right. There was one moment for me, I guess, maybe everybody has well, let me ask you this question. Do you think there's a moment where it happens, or do you think it's sort of drawn out over a long period of time?
I think it's drawn out over a long period of time for the majority of people. For me, it certainly was, as I described it as an evolution. But I think there often is a point or a series of individual moments that you can remember or point to, or at least imagine that you remember, that pointed you in the right direction, whether it was a conversation or a dream or a page in a book, or viewing that crowd and interpreting it for the first time ever different because of something that happened to you previously or because of something you recently learned. There's often a specific memory, I think.
Yeah, I have a distinct memory of just sort of giving up the idea that I could formulate in my own mind a state that would be better than a non-state, and it was like, oh, to heck with it. It was a little bit scary. I remember feeling the sense of having dived into a new world. But once I made the shift, I could never go back.
Giving up on the state is the least defeating failure you will ever go through in your entire life.
Well, thank you so much, Joseph, for deconstructing the process for us. I'm going to try to put the URL in the video, and thank you for being such a wonderful contributor to Liberty.me. It's been fun having your own publishing site and interacting with members, wouldn't you say?
And it's been amazing to be here. Thank you very much.
Okay. All the best. Take care, my friend.
Good.
Bye-bye.